I chose the best friend's brother. He was my best friend's older brother, freshly divorced and twice my age, and I thought he was untouchable. Until a weekend alone tore apart every rule I thought I believed in. That Friday evening, the mountains stretched wide and the air smelled of pine and wood smoke as I pulled my bag from the back seat. My best friend, Naomi, had rushed off for a last-minute work crisis, leaving me alone at the family cabin with Daniel. He stepped out onto the porch, hands in his pockets, graying hair catching the fading sunlight, eyes that seemed to see far more than they let on. I had known him for years, quiet, reserved, a man who had loved and lost, but I had never allowed myself more than polite hellos and brief conversations over dinner. The cabin door creaked, and inside there was the weight of silence, punctuated only by the wind rattling loose shutters. My life before that moment had been orderly. Steady career, comfortable home, a marriage that looked perfect from the outside, but had long since cooled into polite indifference. I filled my days with small victories, closing deals at work, organizing charity events with Naomi, keeping up appearances. But I had also learned how to silence the ache of loneliness with busyness. Daniel had been married for 20 years. His wife left him for someone younger. I remember seeing him at Naomi's last birthday, the shadows under his eyes, the way he laughed politely but never smiled fully. We had exchanged a single warm glance then, both of us probably recognizing something broken in the other. It was Saturday afternoon when the first crack in the wall appeared. I had burned my finger cooking pasta. No big deal, but enough to make me hiss. And he took my hand into his without hesitation. His touch was careful but grounding, his thumb brushing over my skin just once before letting go. Something inside me shifted, sharp and slow, like ice breaking apart after a long winter. Later, we found ourselves sitting on the porch under a thin blanket of stars, the scent of his coffee mingling with cool night air. He asked if I was happy, just like that, voice low, eyes steady. My mind blanked. I sipped my tea instead of answering. Naively, I thought asking me such a question was only kindness. But when I looked up, the way he was watching me, it was as though he already knew the truth I was afraid to say aloud. Heartbreak, jealousy, rage, they all came flooding back without warning. The memory of my husband's careless confession 3 years ago still burned in my chest. How he said she made him feel alive, as if I had ever stopped trying. The tears had tasted metallic even then, my footsteps echoing hollow in the empty apartment that night as I paced from room to room. And now, Daniel's quiet warmth was unearthing feelings I had buried under practicality. I wasn't naive about consequences. He was Naomi's brother, off limits by every possible stretch, and much older, though the lines on his face only added to the steadiness in him. My pulse quickened every time his hand brushed mine, accidental or not. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down, I knew he felt it too. We moved through that weekend in a careful dance. Breakfasts on the porch where I memorized the way steam spiraled from his mug. Walks down to the lake where dry leaves crunched under our boots and the air smelled faintly of moss. And once, in the hallway after dinner, I turned and nearly collided with him, my shoulder grazing his chest. Neither of us stepped back. His eyes were searching mine, slow, deliberate, until Naomi's voice echoed in my memory, snapping me back to reason. I fled to my room, closing the door as my breath came too fast to steady. If this confession has you holding your breath, hit like and share because you will not believe what happened next. On Sunday morning, the sky was pale and the air crisp enough to sting my cheeks. Daniel was already outside splitting wood. I watched from the kitchen window, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with eggs on the stove. That afternoon, sitting by the fire, he handed me a photograph. It was from years ago, Naomi's graduation, and standing just behind her in the shot, I saw myself. I had been laughing at something off camera, and he was looking at me, not at the celebration. My breath hitched. "I found this last week," he admitted, voice careful. "I remember wondering who you were and why I wanted to know more." My heart pounded, throat tight, the orange glow of the fire painting his features in deep, softened lines. I wanted to speak, to bridge the gap between us, but fear kept me still. In the hours that followed, he never pressed me, only gave space as if respecting invisible boundaries that both of us knew were already frayed. That night, sleep refused to come. Every creak of the cabin reminded me how close he was. And every shift in the wind carried the scent of cedar and smoke, him. I thought about the years wasted in a loveless marriage, the way I had convinced myself love was something you could survive without. And yet here I was, pulse racing over a man I shouldn't want, a man whose presence calmed me, even as it set me spinning. As dawn came, I found him in the kitchen, still in a worn flannel shirt. He smiled, just slightly, and offered me coffee. Neither of us spoke of what hung between us, but when our fingers brushed over the mug handle, my chest ached with something painfully tender. Naomi arrived before lunch, unaware, her laughter filling the cabin as if nothing in the world had shifted. But I knew everything had. Daniel walked me out to my car, the gravel crunching beneath our shoes. He didn't touch me, but his eyes held mine as he said, "Take care of yourself." There was weight in those words, unspoken promises and quiet longing tangled inside them. Driving away, the lake's surface flashed silver through the trees, and my hands tightened on the wheel. I was not in love yet, but I could no longer pretend I did not want to be. In the weeks since, we have not spoken directly, not about that weekend, not about the photograph, but Naomi mentioned casually that Daniel had started going out more, his face looking healthier, lighter. And every time I pass the strip of highway that leads toward his end of town, a part of me wants to turn the wheel and find out if that one accidental touch could become something real. Life rarely hands you second chances in a neat, presentable box. Sometimes it throws you into the arms of someone you once wrote off entirely, someone who sees you differently than the rest of the world ever has. Maybe it is forbidden. Maybe it is dangerous. But maybe it is the exact thing your soul has been quietly waiting for. If you crave more raw emotional confessions, please like, share, and subscribe. Your next chapter awaits.